strategist. Oh, thank you. Yes, let's actually record this. Hold on. I should do that as well. I want to record it on my computer. How do I record first? Okay, now Kimberly, you can record. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is set some context for you for publishing when it comes to publishing for business. Because when you understand the power of publishing for business, you begin to see the possibilities are endless. And so when I first started doing this, so if you go all the way back, I used to work for Caterpillar, just shared that with a couple of you. And I managed employee communications and HR strategy for 12 years. Well, then I left Caterpillar to come home and I started doing freelance marketing consulting. In fact, Dan Ritchie he's here in our community. He was in a mastermind group that I ran. And we used to meet once a month at the country club, and I would teach for an hour, and then we had a private mastermind group. Someone would stick around and we would work on business ideas together. And so that's a fun part of this backstory. But as I worked with business owners, what I found was that business owners like myself, we were scrambling to do all the things. We have to bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan. You got to do the newsletters and the blogs and the emails and the social posts and the events and go to the BNI meetings. And it's a lot. And so I started looking for ways to help my clients get further faster. And I actually prayed a question. And the question was, God, if I had a business owner's attention for a short amount of time, what could we create that would last them 6 months or longer? And God gave me 3 answers to that. And so the third answer was a book. And this was back in 2011 when people weren't self-publishing much. Like this whole world was brand new. And so that next year in 2012, we published 3 different clients, an accountant, a financial advisor, and a not-for-profit youth ministry leader. And all 3 of their businesses completely changed overnight. The accountant then credited her business for growing by 30, her annual revenue growing 30% for the next 3 years from the book. So what blew me away, the not-for-profit suddenly had money coming in because he could speak on stage, and then people would buy the book and he would have cash from that, and he could also sell the book. But it got him into meetings with key authorities because he had the authority of a book. And what I began to say is, wow, like this is the game changer. And so that's where I took my business and marketing business and I said, that's it, we're going all in on publishing. What I tried to do at that point was to partner with a publishing or a marketing agency to do some of this work, and with a publisher. When I talked to a marketing agency, they were like, why would you do a book? And I'm like, are you kidding? So that didn't work. So then I went to a publisher, and a publisher kept wanting to jack up the book because they were concerned about their royalty model. And so they wanted a mass market book that would be of interest to as many people as they could sell it to. And when you're writing a book for your business or creating a book for your business, you need it to, it's a product, right? And it needs to serve a very specific product or it needs to serve a very specific reason in your business. And so that's where this idea of niche publishing came from, right? What is the niche that you want to be seen as the expert in? And how do we use publishing to establish your authority in that space and also to convert cold leads into warm leads and hot prospects? And so as I started working with clients, we've published over 225 business leaders now specifically. And these are people all that we've worked with one-on-one. What I discovered in this journey was that I inherently looked at things differently because I was always looking at it as a strategic perspective. And so what I want to share with you up front right now is what I believe are the 10 different publishing strategies for business. We're just going to jump right into this because I want to get Dan up because Dan's story is phenomenal. Dan was one of our first clients. But this illustration here is how I view publishing. You will not see any other publisher talk about this because honestly, no one thinks of it like in this way. But when we look at as a business owner, what are the different publishing strategies we can use to help you take your business to the next level? There are really about 10 different publishing strategies. But for the purposes of growing a business and using it as a marketing asset, there are really only 4 that we would want to start with. And so I'm going to talk about these four really quickly. The first one is a magazine or a newsletter, an annual publication. That works really well if you're like us and you have somewhat of an agency model. I'm not going to go into that. I know a lot of you actually opted in from our website. You can view our annual magazine there. It's on the shelf. It's actually a real thing. You can buy it and we ship it to you. And when I go speak, I give them away. But that's really great if you have a lot of case studies and you want to update it annually. But the book that most people dream of writing is what we call the signature book. And that's the book that's the book and that strategy is if you want to get on the bigger stages and you want to be seen as an authority in your space, then we typically will go for the signature book strategy, and we'll do it in paperback, hardcover, ebook, audiobook. We'll do it in all the things. And it's usually at least 150 pages or longer in order to have enough thickness or clout to get or to gain you the authority that you're looking for. Now, some people aren't ready to write that book, or that book is not ready or ideal for their market because their market won't read that book. And so in those cases, we switch to the inspirational gift book strategy, which is kind of like a devotional or a bathroom book, right? It's a collection of short stories. And in this model, the inspirational gift book strategy is great for audiences who won't read your book. But we still produce it in print and in hardcover and in audiobook and ebook. So it still has a lot of the same benefits as a signature book strategy. The next one, and the one that we've used heavily with Dan Ritchie, is the niche business book. And these are short books that are very specifically written to close. And in fact, we won't go into it in detail in this challenge, but we actually have an 11-chapter model that we've used on Dan's books that is designed to take a cold lead and turn them into a hot prospect by the time they finish the book so that they're ready to pick up the phone and call you. So if you're in the marketing world, like you may have ever heard the term long form sales letter, this is effectively a long form sales letter without feeling salesy. And that's really important because what makes publishing unique is we're going to put your book on Amazon. And when we put your book on Amazon, your business, your product, your marketing asset will be open for reviews. So for that reason, we really want to create great value in anything that you produce. And so that's why we want to make sure that in any of these, anyone who buys it is going to give you great reviews, and they're never going to feel like they're being sold in the book. Okay, I'm not going to go into these other ones. I will say a lot of times you'll see in the vanity press world, particularly anthologies, you may have been offered the opportunity to write a chapter in a book, and then everybody buys the book and they all become bestsellers. I am going to just encourage you. That model really is only great for the person who's hosting it, and for everybody else in there, it feels good. It's just not a great model for growing your business and building and leveraging publishing. So here's the goal of the challenge now moving forward. I've given you a high level view of the 10 different publishing strategies. And what I want you to be thinking about over the next 5 days is which one of these strategies makes sense for me and my goals. Because 4 out of the 5 people that I talk to are planning to write the wrong book. And so what I want to help you with here by bringing in all of these experts is to help open your eyes to what publishing could do for your business and how to begin to think about the right book for your goals. So even once we know, like, okay, I need the signature book strategy, do you need elements of the perfect niche book in it? So it does help you close, right? Do you want to give away the farm or don't you? There's all kinds of questions that we're going to start exploring as we meet these guest experts. So at this point, I am going to change my view to gallery view to speaker view and bring Dan up. There we go. And bring me up. Okay, Kimberly, I may need you. There we go. Here we go. Dan, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So I already mentioned a little bit about how I met Dan. But Dan, let's talk about those days, because back in the days when you were in the mastermind, you had one and you were building actually the second fitness studio locally. Talk about the challenges you were facing in that business and what happened when you started to think bigger.
Well, a fitness studio always has the daily challenge of you need a new customer all the time. So you've got to always be selling. And so you're always looking for the next lead generation strategy, the next introduction, the next place you can speak, and how can I reproduce myself in multiple places. And then when we went to a second location, it's like, oh, gee, there's not going to be two of me. So having strategies where you can be constantly marketing in your sleep is pretty critical. And then really, so this was, and I don't recommend that launch a fitness business in the height of what people call the Great Recession, but that's kind of what we did. I mean, we opened in 2007 when things looked pretty good, and then all of a sudden 2008, 2009 roll around, and fortunately we grew right through it because our target customer was a wealthy boomer and senior that needed our service. But we got to the point where we realized we need more marketing strategies to reach people that we can't reach, and to get into physicians' offices, to get past the gatekeepers, to get referrals coming from places. And our unique challenge in the fitness world is no one wants to tell anyone that they go see a personal trainer, right? I mean, like if you sit down at lunch with your friend and you're like, man, you really need a personal trainer, that doesn't go over real well, right? Like, what are you calling me, fat and out of shape, or what's wrong with me? So, and I think a lot of people are shy or even embarrassed to tell people that they have a personal trainer, right? Because if you don't look super fit, looks like your trainer's not doing a great job. So having a book for that local business was super valuable. But then really Cody and I had a dream of doing something much bigger, and that was educating trainers, educating the fitness industry, really taking our model. Because the fitness industry sort of took note of us. They're like, how did you guys grow your business during the recession? No fitness businesses were growing during the recession. People were cutting personal training, cutting health club, right? It's not a necessary expense. Well, it is if you're 65 years old and it's keeping you vital and functional, right? So we were focused on a different customer that all of a sudden everyone was interested in. And so then leveraging a national book, and actually two of them, just opened up a lot of speaking opportunities, most of which now, Nicole, I say no to, because if you're not going to put me in front of a big enough audience, it's not worth it. There's so many fitness conferences. But if you're going to put me in front of 2,000 people, I'll show up and give my book away. I'd be happy to do that. So Cody and I are a little bit more diligent as to who we speak to, and we work with national franchises like Anytime Fitness and folks like that.
Okay, so I'm going to do a teaser, and we're going to talk about the 4 books, well, the 3 books, and then what we did with that in just a second. But I want to, since the theme of this 5-day challenge is also talking about creating a movement, what I loved about your story when I met you was, original goal was to impact the lives of 1,000 people in our community, right? And then you had an epiphany. That's where your movement started. Do you want to just briefly tell us what that epiphany was?
Yeah, sure. So when Cody and I opened Miracles Fitness in 2007, really, it wasn't to open a fitness studio. Our belief was there should be hundreds of these in probably 100 different shapes. They should be in retirement communities. They should be on cruise ships. They should be in local neighborhoods. They should be fitness studios. They should be in health clubs. But we saw the aging phenomenon coming in 2007. It took us about 6 years later before people actually sort of caught on to this concept. Like people in their 50s and 60s will exercise, because that was just, sort of a misnomer, right? Like, in fact, even major multi-million-dollar equipment companies are like, you're never going to get seniors to come exercise. We're like, oh, really? Watch us, right? So we're like, guess what? In a few years, baby boomers are going to start becoming seniors, and they're going to think differently about what it looks like to be a senior. And so we opened a fitness studio. I don't recommend this either, right? We opened a fitness studio while doing PhDs at Purdue. Not the easiest thing. We both got our PhDs in 2008, and became experts in the field of fitness and aging while the boomers were coming of age, right? And so we said, hey, this huge wave of 70 million people are going to be turning 65, 10,000 a day. I mean, it's still mind-boggling me to realize that if you show up at the Medicare office on Monday, you got 10,000 people that were new Saturday, 10,000 that were new Sunday, 10,000 that are new Monday, right? That's a tough Monday at the Medicare office. And that's every day for the next several years, right? So we're like, this is a huge wave of people that are going to age differently. Well, then we started to realize, Miracles Fitness is nice. We can probably serve a couple thousand clients. well, what can one trainer do over their career? Well, they can impact about 1,000 lives. And so we started getting serious. If we can educate 10,000 trainers on everything we learned at Purdue in 5 years, and now everything we've learned over the next couple of years, training people, kind of figuring it out at Miracles Fitness, that's 10,000 trainers that can impact 1,000 lives. That's 10 million lives that are going to age differently. Why does that matter? Because most of us want our parents or our grandparents around just a little bit longer, right? Most communities could use their seniors, their volunteers, their folks in their 70s and 80s that, by the way, do almost everything for us, right? I mean, they're the volunteers at church, in the hospital, in the schools. If we could get 2 or 3 more healthy years out of them, it's going to transform communities, families, every aspect, right? So that was kind of our big vision. We're now at about 5,800 trainers educated. So we're almost a little past halfway to that goal, and we're in 33 countries around the world. So that's pretty cool. And I don't even know, accurately how many languages, but I know we're in Korean, Spanish, Russian, Italian. There might be more that I'm not even aware of.
That is so cool. All right. So I want you to catch something like if you're in the room and you're over 50 and you know that you're supposed to work out, it's really because Dan and Cody launched this movement. It was your thesis at Purdue and then the Functional Aging Institute, and everybody then caught on to it and you ignited a fire. But that's what blew me away about you. And so as I saw this starting to bloom, I just said, like, how do I support you? So let's talk about how we ended up working together. So you got this vision. You decided you want to go from 1,000 locally or 2,000 with 2 locations to 10 million lives. So you hired a coach who was an expert, right, in franchising. And one of the first things he told you to do was write a book.
I've hired a lot of coaches over the years, but Bedros Keuilian was probably the first coach that said, you're going to have to write a course or create a certification. So in my world, in the fitness industry, right, people won't pay you right away for business coaching or even a business model, but they will buy your certification because they want the next course or train. And so really the first thing we did was create the functional aging specialist, that certification. And then the focus on that was then how do we grow an audience and attention? And so then we published a book with you, Nicole, through Amazon, the Never Grow Old book, which we very quickly got to bestseller status. So now we're best-selling authors. We can speak at more conferences to talk about the functional aging specialist, because in the fitness industry, you've got to have continuing education, which guess what? That means you got to buy another certification or another course or another program to stay a certified trainer. And so Bedros basically said, you're just going to have to jump into the certification and CEC or continuing education credit game, if you will, because that's what fitness trainers know, right? That's what they buy. They buy more courses, they buy more programs, they buy more education. And so that's really how we launched. And then the book just leveraged our ability, right? If you're a published author, that immediately bumps you up the list in terms of speakers, right? Because there's hundreds and hundreds of speakers for these conferences, and just having a PhD doesn't guarantee you're going to get to speak at the events. But now you're a published author and a studio owner, and you just keep adding to your resume.
Yeah. I think what's neat is you're going to get, this audience is going to get to meet Ed Rush on Wednesday, and Ed is also now certifying coaches, right? And so once you know what your spark is, right, and you can then start to clone yourself and certify other people, that's when the magic starts to really happen, right? And you start to make a big impact. And let's face it, you also have people paying you.
It was interesting because I think for several years we thought, well, the last thing we want to do is create another certification because there's so many out there. It's confusing for a fitness trainer. And then when this coach said, no, you have to basically stick your flag in the ground and say, but we have the certification for people that want to train people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, because no one was doing that, right? There were maybe 1 or 2 senior fitness courses out there. And that's where Nicole could help you, right? Because if we had written a senior fitness certification, that would have been the wrong book, would have been the wrong course, would have been the wrong strategy, because nobody wants a senior fitness trainer except maybe people in their late 70s or even 80s, right? Like someone who's 65 you call them a senior, they might punch you in the face, right? It's an insult, right? They don't think of themselves as a senior. I'm not a senior, right? 65-year-olds think they're 49, right? They're not, but that's what they think, right? So we had to create the functional aging specialist because that's how our industry worked. That's how people responded to what we were teaching. Then they got certified. The amazing thing was the number of women in their 40s and 50s who were like, I've been looking for this my whole career, right? They're like, I've never had a training certification in what I want to do and who I want to train. And we created it for them. And so then, of course, they're loyal customers. They want to come to our annual conference. They want to get business coaching. They want to drink more Kool-Aid from us, right? Because they're like, you're the first that has ever taught us what we're passionate about. And so then they want to buy more and they want to buy the next course. And we're like, we got to put out another course for them and then a balance course and then even more. So it was kind of really rewarding to see that quickly. So many people had been looking for what we put out.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's kind of recap. By the way, many of you are here because of Dan Ritchie, like, so you're personal trainers or you're in this industry. So please say hello in the chat if they're here because of Dan Ritchie. Okay, so this book, actually, to clarify, Dan, you self-published this book without me, and that's where I started saying, okay, whoa, what are you up to? And so then we helped you take it to bestseller status. So he did this one on his own. In our 10 different publishing strategy models, though, this is what I would call a signature book. Right. So this book gave him the authority in the space. So when he was up on stages, right, they are also, PhD is pretty darn awesome. But also then having the cloud of a best-selling book, really valuable. Look at everybody saying, oh, look at the love, Dan. How fun is that? Brett's on the call.
Brett Cohen's hilarious.
Okay, so this was your first book. Now, this book, though, really helped to validate that. I'm going to fan through it, because this is what I do on a lot of calls with clients, is like, it helped validate that older adults, mature adults, could actually do wood chops, right? And planks and all of the things. But then you started using it. There's yours.
I mean, look at the guy on the cover, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just curious. Everybody type in the chat how old. I don't know how great you can see Gil, but how old do you think Gil is? Don't chat how old you think I am. How old do you think Gil is on that cover? Brett says 78. That's a pretty good guess. 72, 85. Russell, I won't tell him you said that. 75, 75, 84. Okay, great. He was 80. He was 82 when we took that picture. But he's obviously doing something that takes some functional ability, right? He's not a frail 82-year-old man if he's lifting and you can't tell. I should have made it clear. That's an 18-pound medicine ball he's got in his hands there. So that was important to us. And I specifically went older with that image than I typically would for local marketing, because I wanted to show, yeah, gray-haired older men can do this functional stuff. That was really important to us. I think the cover is half of the book, in my opinion, right? I mean, let's face it. If you get the cover wrong, that can really hurt you, right? Because people are they're not even going to pick it up, or they're going to be like, well, that's not for me, or so that was pretty important to us. And then we obviously picked a quite different cover for our local book. We picked a woman,
Let's talk about this one.
very intentional, a well-known woman in town. Very, very intentional, and a specific age that we knew the women we were trying to attract would identify with, which is really critical, right? If I'd put a super fitness model in her 20s, then every woman I gave that book to in their 50s or 60s, her first reaction would be very negative towards us. In fact, she probably wouldn't want to say it, but if you really asked her, she'd be like, yeah, I hate you guys, right? Which is traditional fitness marketing's response for most women in their 50s and 60s. They're like, oh, I hate that. I hate them. That, so much so they might even hate the people in the marketing, right? Like, I hate that woman. I hate that marketing ad. I'm like, well, obviously you're not going to get her as a customer if her first emotional response is to hate your ad, right? So it is really important you get the book cover right, which again is why Nicole's people are, I mean, they're going to tell you like, no, this cover is all wrong, right? It's going to repel people. It's not going to attract the right people, that sort of thing.
So Allison Davis is on the call. Allison, she's smiling and laughing. Well, Allison, you can raise your hand and wave real quick. But we're working on her book. So she's writing a book with us. And the title of the book is 60 is a Good Start. And it's really about a powerful body. Oh, shoot. mind, body, spirit work. Like, and starting over at 60. And so we're working through the cover design right now. But let's go back to your strategy. And so Allison, that's why this is important, why I'm delaying our decision on that. So Dan had this book, which put him on the national stage as well. And they gave it out. And we can talk about how you give them out in a minute, but let's just talk about the strategies now. So this was the signature book strategy. The problem was this book wasn't written to convert. In fact, if you look at it, it's kind of doing the opposite. It's showing people exactly how to work out at home, right? So when I went to him, I'm like, hey, let's turn this into a book that's written to convert leads that maybe people who have never worked out and get them to come in to work with you. And so that's where this book came from. And the title was so darn good, we just used it again. It was like, we racked our brain for a better cover title and couldn't come up with one. Now, this book is what we call then the perfect niche book. So this was the very first iteration of it where I started experimenting with this concept of, is there a perfect formula for a book that's written to convert? Like, what needs to happen in each one of the chapters so by the end of the book, the person feels like they've gotten great value out of the book, but now they want to come work with you. Like, we didn't tell them how to do it, but we told them why they need to do it. We got them really excited and we gave them some things to do, and then they want to come in and work with you. So that's what this book is. And it's intentionally short. So it's under 100 pages because we know what's going to happen. When Dan gives somebody his book, when you guys give them your perfect niche book, right? The thing is, people look at it, they get it, and then they make a date. They're like, all right, I'm going to sit down tonight on my favorite spot on my sofa or in my comfy chair, might grab a drink of iced tea. They're going to put down their phone and they're going to proceed to read your marketing message for the next 30 to 45 minutes. And that's why publishing is so incredible, right? Facebook ads, challenges, webinars are all really great. But if you want to get people away from their digital device to spend time with you and your message, then you want to make sure that you have a book in your systems, right? And so, so that's where we started with this. And then Dan, I guess, do you want to just talk about your philosophy? Let's talk about your philosophy on giving away both of these, and then I'm going to show what we did next.
Sure. Well, I would say my philosophy, I don't even know if I have that small book here. I've got everybody else's we've done, but my philosophy on giving the small book away, and I kind of shared this earlier, right? Is now I always enjoyed speaking, and speaking was a great opportunity, but now I've got a reason and an offer to speak anywhere and everywhere in the community. The big book was, we wanted to get more public speaking opportunities at conferences, and really just add to our resume as sort of national experts. We did not give this giant book away at conferences because there wasn't any reason for us to do that. People could go buy it on Amazon. We might even give them a link to get it for free on Amazon as a Kindle. But we didn't give this book away because it wasn't going to lead to a customer for us, right? But the little book for our studio, right? Oh gosh, I want to speak at Kiwanis Club, Rotary Club, Purdue retiree events. Anywhere you can put me in front of 10 people, I'm going to give my book away. I shared earlier, I spoke at the Purdue retiree event to about 180 retirees. And I basically ruined the conference for the speakers that came after me because I gave my book away. Everyone wanted to talk to me, ask more questions. I can't believe can we pay you for the book? No, it's my gift to you, right? They realized I just gave $2,000 away in the room. I said, no worries. If you want to come work, then you don't even have to hard sell anybody, right? You just say, hey, if you have any interest after you read the book, just, there's contact info in there. Of course, I knew I was going to get 2 or 3 clients out of the room, right? Easily got over 10 grand a return on my $2,000 goodwill investment. But the bigger thing was, it had a lasting impact. The next year, when I came back to the Purdue Retirees event, people were disappointed that I wasn't speaking. I was just at the table giving my book. I still remember your talk last year when you gave your book away and I read your book, and on, right? So that goodwill factor, and people talk to one another. And, if you ever think about exercising, you should go see Dr. Dan. That power in a local community was really the strategy. So I don't need to sell my book. I want to give it away. I'm literally giving it away like candy, right? I'm like, I will give this book away as fast as I can. We gave it away at local banks. Well, who goes to the bank these days, right? Not very many people under 50, but certainly people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s still go to the bank, right? We gave it away at doctor's offices, chiropractors, any sort of allied health type place. I always teased Joyce, who was 86 years old. I said, Joyce, you're one of our worst referring clients. And she'd always say back to me, well, Dan, most of my friends are dead or in a nursing home, right? So, okay, that's a fair excuse, right? So I'd give her 10 copies of my book to take to her doctor's office every time she went, because he could not believe how healthy she was. He's like, Joyce, you're my only 86-year-old that's getting better, not worse. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. She'd give him 10 books, right? I still remember Gene came in with my book. He had a folder, doctor's info. Doctor told him he needed to exercise. He said, I've been meaning to call you for 6 months. My doctor gave me your book a year ago. It took him a year to go from getting my book to signing a $5,000 program with me. And it was the easiest sale ever, right? Because he had my book. My doctor gave it to him, which if your doctor gives you something, that's almost gold with people in their 70s, right? Gene has been with us 7 years. We can't get him to quit, continue to spend $5,000 a year at the business, right? We just can't get him to go away, right? And I never have set foot in that doctor's office. I've never met Dr. Mithke. It's not even easy to meet some of these physicians, right? You walk into the office and they immediately are like, whoa, who are you? You're trying to sell us something, right? But if my client walks in with 10 books, she slips right in under the radar, right? She's a sweetheart, hands him 10 books. He gives them out to clients like her, right? So in a roundabout way, even though Joyce never referred us anyone directly, we've gotten several clients from her book infiltration strategy, which has really been gold for us. So that's how we use that little book, and that's why we give it away really as fast as we can.
Yeah. All right. What a great segue. By the way, if I remember right, that guy coming in with a book, he also had the script, the doctor's script inside there that said, work out like miracles.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, the doctor had told him what he needed to do, gave him my book, took him 6 months to get from that to thinking about it, right? And then I've been meaning to call you for 6 months. Which the other thing I like about the book is, in most cases, if I give you my book, and this is my book for fitness conferences now that I give away, right? I mean, trainers get lots of stuff at fitness conferences, flyers and postcards and all kinds of specials. But if I give you my book, you're probably going to get home with it. Might be a month or two before you even get to reading it. But eventually you're going to go, oh, I need to learn more from the Functional Aging Institute. I need to follow up with Dr. Dan. I need to actually put into practice some of the, my book is going to last longer, have a greater marketing impact over months of time, right? Because if you read someone's 50 pages, that gets into your brain a whole lot more than if you just look at a postcard, right? So that value, and I think sometimes we forget, it takes people a long period of time sometimes to pull the trigger, become a customer, make a change, right? We all are like, well, we can figure it out, right? I mean, like, I think I can fix my leaky faucet, right? 3 months later, you finally decide to call the plumber, right? It takes us a little bit of time sometimes, especially in my industry, right? Health and fitness, we all tell ourselves, well, I should be able to do better. I can figure it out. I don't need an expert. But 12 months later, when you finally say, okay, I got to do something, right? And that's what it was for Gene. It took him 12 months to finally say, I got to do something. And then it was no problem having him jump into a $5,000 program. I mean, he did not hesitate to spend the money. And like I said, we can't get him to stop. So what is that? 7 years later, he's a $35,000 customer. So I chuckle when people are like, but you give your book away to the doctor's office? I'm like, yeah. And I'll give a whole lot of them away when they're worth $35,000 customers.
And what a great point then let's make here is, so what makes Niche Pressworks unique in another angle from the publishing industry is that all of our clients own 100% of the rights to their book, including the printing rights. So every one of our authors knows exactly where to go to order directly from the printer. We've got them in all the accounts, so their books on Ingram and Amazon, like it's in all the places. And then they can also go and order directly from the printer at any given time. And Dan's book, this one cost him $2.15 a copy. So it says, we were talking about that when you gave it out, it says $10 a copy on the back of it. So when he gave it out at that Purdue alumni event, everybody felt like he had given out a $2,000 gift to the room. and he bought it for $2.15 a piece. Right. And so as you look at publishing strategies, that's one of my biggest frustrations too, is a lot of the people in the industry are still trying to collect royalties by owning your print rights. And as a business owner, then that means, well, now instead of paying $2.15 a copy to give away your book, you're gonna have to pay $4 or $5 a copy. And as a business owner, like that adds up really quickly in a lot of different ways. Okay, so here's what happened. Let me recap because the publishing strategy gets juicier. So we had this book for getting on the national stages, right? And then we created this book, which he was using to get clients at his local fitness studios. But he was still speaking, he and Dr. Cody, his business partner, were still speaking on all the national stages. So you had a whole back-end business model. So in addition to certification, you had a mastermind, you had business in a box. I'll let you speak to that in just a second. But we had a new publishing challenge, or we had a new challenge in front of us. And so we solved that with this book, which you just set up. And so this book is an example of another perfect niche book. So it follows the 11 chapter model. I was getting a little closer to it when we did this one. And it's written to close trainers to not only get certified, but also then to learn how to market and grow their business. So now, Dan, you want to talk about this book then and how you used it? Because this one cost you $2.15 again, a copy. So you want to talk about how you use that one?
Yeah, so we use this one really in three ways. And fortunately, we did it right before COVID. So the beauty of the digital version of it and the shipping version, right? We did the whole the book's free plus shipping, right? Because we weren't going to ship it to you. But so as soon as the world went digital, and all of a sudden we're doing all kinds of online conferences. But really, our goal is to get this book into people's hands however they wanted it, right? So we could give them the PDF for free if they want the ebook. We could give it to them physically if we're speaking at a conference. So if I spoke at a conference and gave a keynote to 100, 150, 200 people, everyone got this book on their chair. Now, again, it's a $2 investment. Well, in a lot of cases, these conferences were paying me between $500 and $1,500 to speak there. So I'm happy to give the book away. Sometimes the conferences don't pay anything, but I can talk them into, hey, are you willing to give away 100 of my books? And I'll give you a discounted price, right? So sometimes the price for them is $5 a book. So I'm actually making a little bit of money back. So the interesting thing, I can't just show up at a fitness conference and give out a post. They won't let me put a postcard on every chair because I'm selling something or pitching something, but they'll let me give away my book, even though the whole thing is a 50-page sales document, right? Because it feels like I'm giving away great value, great content, which there is in the book, right? You don't have to buy anything from us. We give you tons of great strategies in the book. So it just made the speaking opportunities a lot more powerful because a lot of fitness conferences don't let you pitch. You can't even put a slide in your presentation that says, hey, if you want to learn more info, here's my free book. That's not allowed. But you can give your book away physically. So that was super helpful. And then obviously in 2020, when the world changed, we had the opportunity for people to either get our book for free via PDF or do the free plus shipping. And I think we charged $7.99 for shipping, which we probably lost a little bit of money. We eventually raised that to $9.99. So it covered our shipping cost, covered the cost to print the book. I never even saw the book. Nicole managed all of that. It went out of some magic warehouse in Indiana. I have no idea how that worked, but people would put in their information, pay their shipping, book goes out to them, right? And so that really grew our email list as well of people saying, hey, we're interested in more business topics, more business tactics, more marketing. The average fitness trainer is not a business owner, so they will buy a certification course from you. They might buy an education course from you, but the studio owner or aspiring studio owner will spend much more with you because they need business coaching, marketing coaching. And so those were really who we were targeting. So that really just allowed us to capitalize on all the opportunities we were already involved in anyway, right? I mean, I'm speaking at a conference in Indianapolis to 250 trainers. Well, how can I possibly capture all of their info? I can't, right? Especially if the conference doesn't allow me. But if I can give them my book, right now, they're all going to remember me. The ones that are interested in what we do have that information. I was basically able to give them my 60-page sales presentation of why they should work with me, why they need me. Super powerful, right? Led to lots and lots of clients following up. And our business clients were worth anywhere from 2,000 a year to 15,000 a year, depending on what program they picked. And some of them I know even went on to publish books with Nicole, right? Because they had big ideas in terms of what they wanted to do. So it led to a lot of bigger opportunities.
Well, let's talk about those people then. That's what's cool. Okay, so the next publishing strategy was we had Dan and Cody all set up for their studio and for their speaking gigs, but then we realized like they have a lot of certified trainers around the world. How do we help these guys make the impact? And so what we did was we took this book and we white labeled it, and we allowed other trainers to buy the opportunity to use that content and custom brand it for their own. And so what I want to show you is these guys. So these are all versions of the same book. Dan held up one earlier, that are all basically the same content. There you go. Dan's going to leaf through them.
I got a whole bunch too. Yeah.
Yeah. So this whole shelf up here, this is all the licensed books. So what we did was we took the 9 core chapters of the book and then we licensed that to trainers around the world. And they could use that then. And so they reached out to us. We facilitated all that for Dan. We're still running that program for Dan and for his trainers. A couple of you are on this call, have had a chance to do that. A couple of you are on this call that are interested in doing that in your own business, because in the past month, I've talked to 3 or 4 different business owners that this idea of white labeling their content and allowing their certified coaches to use it is an incredible way that you can leverage publishing, again, to spread the word faster. And also, every time Dan sends us a client, he makes money from that. So we cut him a commission check for his wisdom, his knowledge of the books, and we take care of it and it's hands off. And together, again, we've done that. We had Never Grow Old was the first book. This particular book was written for his studios, which was, it was written to people who had never worked out. How do we tell them training is safe? How do we get them off the couch? And so this book was written to convert that audience. We ended up creating 3 more versions of books. One was written to the active 50 or 60-year-old who is playing golf or swimming or biking or mall walking, but we need to get them into a studio, right? And so we talked about the 6 modalities of functional fitness. And we convinced them that in that book that you need a trainer who's working on all your physical functions, not just the same repetition act that you're doing over and over when you're cycling or running or whatever it is. And then we had 2 books that targeted specific areas in the weight loss market. So all in all, we ended up with 4 licensed books that we've been working with trainers around the world to do. So Dan, what are your thoughts on that? And questions in the chat anytime.
Well, two come to mind. Actually 3 as I think about it. Lisa, I know part of the whole book thing, and people want to write a book, and I see people in the chat saying I'm writing a book, and I think sometimes you have to, either before you write the book or before you get too far along, you have to think about what's the reason and the purpose you're writing a book, because I've seen some people write some amazing books that nobody reads. You go, well, yeah, you wrote the 300-page absolute amazing exercise manual for a 72-year-old male with Parkinson's and no left foot, right? And there's like 7 of those guys out there that might read your book. It's too niched. And oh, by the way, nobody wants to read a 300-page book on exercise. They just don't. Well, Lisa listened to us, right? She just said, I'm going to do exactly what you tell me. And in like 60 days, she made 60 grand off of her book. I mean, it just absolutely transformed her business, blew up her business. I was like, Lisa, you're a 60-year-old woman in Corpus Christi, Texas, an expert, 20 years experience, but people don't know you exist, right? You're like hidden in your own little world. I said, you got to give this book out everywhere influential. And she was still hesitant. Well, that's going to cost me money. If I give away 300 books, that's like $600. I'm like, just listen to us, trust us, right? And that's what she did. She gave away over 1,000 books, and it turned into $60,000 in new clients, blew up her business. Absolutely huge. Nancy Cassou, I think, was in Australia of all places. I noticed we had someone on at 3 a.m. here in Australia. Kudos to you at 3 a.m. Nancy Cassou blew up her business so much. She created a waiting list. She was like, I didn't even know that trainers created a waiting list, right? She never had that problem. She had like 90 people at her book signing, book launch. People were so excited to come out and celebrate her, and she was a solo trainer. It just transformed her her business. And then Shelley Turk, it's one of my favorite stories. I know we got some Canadians in the room. It always cracks me up, right? Because we don't have this in the US, right? Shelley's like, well, my fallback is if my studio doesn't work out, I can go back to my lab job. And I'm like, don't you hate your lab job? She's like, oh, I hate my lab job. I absolutely hate it. I can't wait to get out of it. I'm going to open a studio. But my fallback is I can go back to my lab job. I'm like, how do you go back to your job once you leave it? Well, in Canada, I can take a 12-month leave of absence and then return to my job. And I was like, well, that's a terrible strategy for someone trying to go into business, but you're not going to need it, right? She gave away 300 books. She signed up 100 people on her book special, like the $99 21-day offer. She had 40 clients by the end of that special. She was already at break even her first month of opening her studio, right? And of course, in the back of her mind, she's thinking, well, if it doesn't work out, I can go back to my lab job, which I'm like, that's not a great strategy for success. But in 30 days, she's like, I'm totally gonna make it. I'm never going back to my lab job that I hate. I'm like, absolutely, you're not. And in about 2 years, she was doing 400,000 a year, right? And she launched from scratch, and the book was huge. And who did she put? I couldn't find her copy, but who did she put on the cover of her book?
Yeah.
She put the Saskatoon news anchor for 25 years, who everyone trusted, right? We might not trust the news anymore these days, but in most cases, we still trust our local news anchor that talks about, the dogs in the park and the local activities. And she put her on the cover of her book, which made her a trusted authority, right? Literally because she had her standing next to her, that absolutely changed her business. And so that was so critical for her launching from scratch. And she's been super successful using the book. We sat down one time and I said, what was the best thing you did last year to get new clients? She said, she started looking through it. She's like, when I spoke at this women's convention to 200 women and I gave my book away, I got $16,000 worth of new clients. I said, okay, you need to do more of that, right? More women's speaking opportunities, more women's clubs, more women's conventions, more women's conferences, and give your book away. How many other times did you make $16,000 in one hour, one public speaking event, right? And she's like, you're right. I got to give my book away. I got to speak more.
Yeah. So I love Karen. She says in the comments, like, burn the ship. Yes. But Stephanie, all right. So Stephanie says, I want to sell my book. And we hear that, like, there are different strategies. And so you're going to hear tomorrow, Eric Thane is coming. So Eric Thane got an opportunity to speak on the ClickFunnels stage. Shout out to my ClickFunnels people in the room here last year, and almost 5,000 people in the room. And the ClickFunnels strategy, or a stage opportunity, like most events, you cannot sell from stage. You can't pitch your business from stage, right? But you can give away a book. And so he invested to put a copy on every one of those chairs. And so you're going to get to hear his story tomorrow. Now, that's the only time. Like, he does use his book, like when he's selling courses, you get an autographed copy of the book. Now he's planning to move forward. He will sell the book. The reason that strategy worked, again, was he had the right book, and the book was written to convert into clients for him. And so I remember one of our trainers that we worked with, Dan, she was giving away her book. She was following the strategy, and she was giving it away at the wrong place. She was giving away at a restaurant where people over 80 came in to have their grits and biscuits and gravy every morning. And she's like, the book doesn't work. Like, I'm giving it away. Nobody wants the book. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
that's not the audience.
Right. Yeah. I always joke with people, just because you get to speak in the third grade classroom doesn't mean you want to give your book away there. Right. So you do have to give it away to the right audience. That's pretty critical.
Yeah.
So yeah, just giving it away anywhere and everywhere doesn't work. So yeah, that's pretty critical. And keep in mind, I'm just talking about books. These are books that convert. Both our business book and our local, these are books about, how do I get more customers? How do I get them to follow me, like me, trust me, build authority? So I want to give them away because I'm using them as lead generation strategies. I would rather give this book to a trainer at a fitness conference, because they're already telling me they're more interested in knowledge and education, than have to run $5 worth of Facebook ads to try to find the trainer that is interested in education, right? So it's a different strategy. It's more direct response. But for people that want to sell their book, and make money off their book, obviously you're going to have completely different strategies in how you go about it and what information you give out. When we use that, the larger book, right, and sold this on Amazon, different strategies. This book does not get me customers afterwards in most cases, right? Every once in a while, it'll lead to someone wanting to reach out for a consult. Every once in a while, I think I've had 2 or 3 people are like, "Oh, I read your book on Amazon. I want to come visit you." Well, I don't really do that, right? Like I'm not looking for someone in California to say, "I want to make a trip out to Indiana to meet with you." Like, what am I going to train you one time for 30 minutes? I mean, that's not really what we do here. But we've done that a couple times. And I'm always amazed how much people will pay to come visit for an afternoon, so, but that wasn't the focus of this book, right? That different strategy.
Yeah. All
That
right.
I think, let me just add, Nicole, I think that sometimes is a critical mistake people make, right? They make a book for local marketing, and they give so much information in it. Well, I don't even need you, right? You gave me the formula, right? You solved my problem with your book. My little books don't do that. In fact, they agitate the problem. In fact, they make you realize, oh gosh, my doctor was right. I really do need to go talk to these guys. Our marketing book for trainers make trainers realize, I don't know how to do Facebook ads. I don't know how to do public speaking. I don't know how to do sales. I need help with this stuff, right? It makes people realize there's a lot they need to learn that they can learn from us. If I gave them all the solutions and all the answers, they would never need to contact us, right? So you do need to have different strategies. I've seen in the fitness world, people want to share their perfect formula and they want to sell that. And if that's what you want to do, keep in mind, you're not going to get clients from that, right? Because you've already solved their problem, right? And the challenge with that, I think, for most fitness people is there are so many fitness books that already do that. So you're just entering a very crowded publishing world when it comes to fitness books. Now, in other areas, there's lots of opportunities, I think, for people to make money with their book, but you've got to think through, and this is where your team, Nicole, I think is so critical. You've got to write the right book for the right reasons for what you want it to do for you, not just what so many people say, oh, I've always dreamed to write a book. Well, why? And who cares, right? I mean, for what reason? Because if you write the wrong book, you're going to be pretty disappointed, I think, with the outcomes, right? Because you'll be like, oh, I sold 20 of them, right? And it's just not what you thought it could be.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I want to do. What we're going to do is, Dan, if you have a few minutes to stick around for Q&A, we'll do that. But let me take care of the challenge and your homework. So let me post it here in chat room or in the chat. What we're going to do is we're going to put the recording from today's event here later. So if you want to see that, but inside of the Facebook community, what we did was we dropped a link to your homework. So the first thing that I do when I'm working with a client is I ask you, what does success look like to you? What is your mission? And we want to get really clear on what you're trying to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years. So the mistake that most people make is they write the book they wanted to write, not the book their audience wanted, and they write it from where they've been, not where they're headed. And so we want to get clear first on where you're headed. And so inside the Facebook community, we've dropped a kind of like a Mad Libs, we call it a mission creative. And it's just a prompt to give you some clarity on what it is you love doing, why you want to do it, and what's important to you, and what will happen when you do that. And so that is your homework. We'll also then have recordings in there, so you'll be able to get that. So please grab that link and go over to that Facebook group and join us there to continue this conversation. And is there anything I'm forgetting, Nadia? How am I doing? And Nadia gives me, hey, oh, cool, thank you. If you're part of our team, would you go down and raise your hand just so everybody can see our team? Because we've got, I know Linda, our editor's on here. We've got Nadia, who's my operations manager. Kimberly is my EA. Linda, the editor, is here. Kim, we just lose Kim. Kim is the operation or the project manager, client success coach, is part of our team. So love these guys. There's Kim. There we go. So you can see them as part of the team. Okay. Before we get to Q&A, seems like there was something else I wanted to do. I don't know. Make sure you grab that link. Tomorrow we have Eric Thane. We're going to talk about his strategy and what he's doing. Like I said, he is another movement maker. Incredible opportunity he had last year on Funnel Hacking Live. He gave away almost 5,000 copies of his book, and now he's getting ready for the official rollout of his book. Alina, I saw you commented in the chat. I love that. Alina was there. She got a copy. This is his book right here. Create. We ended up doing 2 versions of the cover when we did that, so we'll talk about it tomorrow, and we'll go to step 2 of your challenge assignment. But at this point, Dan, we have some questions. Let's take questions from the group. You can raise your hand if you want and just interact. I'm going to go back to group view, go to gallery view. There we go. And I know, Allison, you had a question. Do you want to hop on and ask it? Where'd you go?
Sure.
There you
go. Well, and maybe this is just to do with a completely different strategy, because I'm thinking about Amazon reviews, and I've just, as I'm writing, because I'm still, that stage, I'm thinking about, like, how do I get those Amazon reviews? Do they have to purchase the book on Amazon to give the book an Amazon review? That's my question.
Great.
I thought they did, but am I right?
Yeah, so fantastic question, because every decision has strategic implications. And so when you give out that 5,000 copies of your book, you do lose some of that Amazon reviews. The way Amazon works is people can submit a review, and they can acknowledge, like, I got a copy at an event and I want to leave a review, right? And Facebook will take a mix of that. So they won't take 100% of that. But Eric Thane is a great example of a lot of people, once his book goes live on Amazon, they will accept a number of people go, I got an advanced copy of this, and that's great. What Amazon loves, of course, because Amazon's a retailer, is they love what they call verified purchase reviews. So yeah, so there's a mix of that. A lot of times we overcome that in the strategy by doing an ebook launch as a low ticket launch. So the people who have the advanced copy can spend an extra $1, buy the digital version, and then they can leave a verified review because they actually did buy a product from Amazon. Which is what we'll probably do for you, because Allison, like I said, is working on her book.
I was thinking about, if there were local times where I had, a bunch of books, would it be something to say, you can purchase the ebook on Amazon right here at the table for $1, and then I will give you the real book. I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but
yeah, we could. Yeah, again, it depends on the room, the audience, the opportunity in front of you. And so, yeah, when we get to those, that's the kind of thing that we work out. Do we have other? I want to make sure, because what I want to do right now is just recap again. Then again, the strategies vary by which of the 10 different publishing strategies you're going to use. Let me just put this back up. We can talk about it again really quickly, right? So today's discussion is opening this question of which publishing strategy makes sense for you. Dan's first big blue book was a signature book model. And then every book you saw after that was a niche book that was written to convert. So that was his strategy. What you're going to see tomorrow with Eric Thane is another signature book strategy, and what I'm looking forward to. So, and then your homework, I think I can share this. Let me show you what your homework is. Hold on. Is it here? I got to move my Zoom controls. Here it is. So this is your homework. And it is a fill in the blanks, just to help you think about, like, what is my secret sauce? Right. So a lot of people come to me and they're planning to write the wrong book. In fact, I always say 4 out of 5 people that I do an initial consultation with are planning to write the wrong book. Not just the wrong publishing strategy, but the wrong topic altogether. Or sometimes it's like just 10 degrees off. But 10 degrees off will bring you a lot of clients that really can make you miserable, right? Like 10 degrees off could be a whole bunch of people that are tire kickers that really can't afford, like they love that you love the same thing they love, and they want to talk to you about it all the time, but they won't give you any money, right? And so those are the kind of discussions that we have to make sure that at the end of the day, you have the right book. But the first thing we want to know is, what does success look like to you? So that is your homework for tonight. And that's what that Mission Creative is going to help you do. So let's go back to Dan. Dan, I'm going to pin you again here. Where's this at? Spotlight. Oh, how do we do this? Why can't I pin him again? Can somebody pin him for me? Oh, I know why. No, wait, I'm sorry. It goes this way. There we are. I guess I just changed my view. Okay. So Dan, let's talk about what's happened since. Do you want to talk about what's going on with your business now since the pandemic and like what's happened? You've had a couple of big things happen that a lot of people dream of happening.
Well, I mean, I've sold all my companies, so you know I'm I sort of joke I'm businessless at the moment. So interestingly enough, in 22, we were moving towards selling Miracles Fitness as FAI kept growing much bigger. The local business it basically became something I didn't need to do anymore. Didn't really want to do, as I wanted to seek more sort of international speaking opportunities, national speaking opportunities, business coaching opportunities. Functional Agent Institute was growing, and really Miracles was becoming sort of an opportunity cost for me. But nothing wrong if you want to run multiple businesses, but for me, I didn't really want to. I was like, so I sold Miracles Fitness in June of 2022. Amazingly enough, in May of 2022, I got an offer for Functional Agent Institute out of nowhere. Was not expecting it. It was not for sale. Was quite surprised, and then spent the next 3 months negotiating that to an offer Cody and I couldn't refuse, and wound up selling both my companies in 2022, which was sort of a surprise. Fortunately, I'm not totally retired, but the Functional Agent Institute sale came with me continuing to consult and speak at conferences for about 3 years. So I'm about a year and a half into that. I still speak at national and international conferences. And so that's now about all I do, which is sort of interesting. I still give away that blue book because we're still looking to grow the Functional Agent Institute, but you know, we grew the Functional Agent Institute into something that became a big enough name in the fitness industry that the biggest fitness education company came along and said, well, what if we just bought your whole company? I said, well, tell me more. So that was pretty exciting. We're hopeful here in 24 that they're going to so explode the Functional Agent Institute that many of you will go, oh, that's the company. I remember when I first heard about that on that webinar with Nicole and Dan. Their plans is to make the Functional Aging Specialist one of the household names in terms of fitness education. So we're excited about that. When a $100 million company comes along and makes you an offer you can't refuse, well, in our case, you sell your company. So I know some people would hold on to it, but I got some pretty good advice from some wiser people that said, hey, if it's an offer you can't refuse, then you got to take it. So yeah, now I'm kind of looking for what's the next thing in my life. And we'll see. So we're working on some big stuff. I think maybe in the next year or two, you'll see some of the stuff we put out because you just never know. So there's lots of opportunities coming my way and Cody's way now, and people that want to work with us. So it's kind of an exciting time. I actually get to tell my kids on a regular basis, I don't know who I want to be when I grow up because now I don't have any companies left. So it's kind of interesting.
And Dan has 5 kids.
I do. Yeah, I have 5, and Cody has 8. So, you know, so we got plenty of kids and plenty of college to pay for. So, no, Alina, IDEA did not buy it. ISSA bought it. ISSA is the largest fitness certification education company in the world. IDEA is the largest conference in the world. And speaking at IDEA twice again this year, so still working with them.
Incredible. Yeah, I used to travel with Dan and Cody.
So, I mean, I guess, I don't know how many people on here are thinking about, boy, I want to create a book to grow my business so I can sell it. But every business you're involved in is for sale. And at some point you do need to sell it. I know people are like, oh, I don't want to ever sell my business. Well, sure you do. Do you want your business to continue after you? Because you're not going to do it after you die or want to retire or do something else. So, you do want to grow your business to the point at which somebody wants to buy it. I love it. Brett Cohen, ISSA was his first cert in 1999. Yes, that does come from old Dr. Hatfield, Dr. Squawk. So yeah, if you build your company to the level of reputation somebody wants to buy it, that's a great thing.
you know, I don't think, what's that time span from the day that you went from, I want to go national with an idea, to you sold FAI, because you'd built such a reputation that they wanted you. What was that time span?
Yeah, so we really officially launched the Functional Agent Institute in January of 2014. We sold it in, I mean, the official sale date was like November 4th of 2022. So about 8.5 years later, here we are 10 years later from the time we started it. In fact, Cody and I had conversations, who's going to buy I mean, to sell a fitness business, a studio, that's one thing, right? It's a brick and mortar business. Somebody's going to want to buy it. You've got physical clients, right? But to sell a company like the Functional Aging Institute, well, who's going to want to buy that? It's Dan and Cody speaking at conferences. Well, we built it into something that was consistent, had about 20 different educational courses, different avenues of revenue, and somebody came along and wanted to buy us up. So that was great.
Which is another benefit of like thinking through your publishing strategy and what you want to do long term. So really cool. All right. Any other questions for Dan before we say goodbye for the day? Fire them in the chat. Otherwise, I just want to thank you so much, Dan. Thank you. Thank you. Our friendship has been a very fun journey over those years. Like, wow, I think we probably met in about 2010. 2000 and yeah, about 2010, because you
Sounds
were one
about
of the
right. No, sounds about right.
you were one of the first people I knew I had to meet when I was looking for entrepreneurs who are doing well in our community. So anyway, this has been a fun ride, and I'm thrilled to have had a part in your movement. Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody that joining us. Don't forget, tomorrow is Eric Thane, and we're going to hear about his very different business and strategy and what he's doing with books. So thank you, Dan. Wait, we got some comments and questions. So I'll say goodbye. Everybody wants to just kind of filter out of here. What we got from Sandeep here?
I love the please don't write a book, or please write a book called Never Grow Up. You know, that's a different concept. The saying is, I get this wrong all the time, but the saying is you don't grow old because you grow old because you stop playing, right? Like you don't just grow old, but you stop playing and then grow old. So yeah, I'm not big on growing up necessarily, but I also think the interesting thing, and Nicole can probably tell you this, that she's probably had a lot of clients later in life that are still saying, "Oh, I've always wanted to write a book," right? In your 60s and 70s is a great time to write your book. People, you know, they don't even necessarily do it for business reasons, right? They've just always wanted to write a book. So I think we see people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s continuing to reinvent themselves, continuing to create. It's not like you're done because you hit a certain age. My kids have realized this because I share inspirational stories, right? They're like, well, what's going to happen when John Williams finally dies, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy in his 90s that keeps doing Indiana Jones movies and Star Wars movies and all their favorite movies, right? And he's still creating music in his 80s and 90s. So I think you're never too old to write a book either, right? So if you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond listening to this or listening to the replay, you've got something to offer. So that's a cool thing too, right? So like I said, I don't know what my next chapter is, but I know there's more. So and I read a lot of books from a lot of people that I realize, oh my gosh, they wrote this book in their 60s or 70s, so that's kind of cool too.
That's very cool. All right. Well, whatever the next book is, I look forward to being part of it. So, okay. Thanks everybody for joining us. Let's call it a day. Dan, thank you so much. And take care,
Thanks
everybody.
for having me.
Yep. Bye.